Welcome to Eagle Spire Gaming. I'm your host, Crown. Today is August 16th, and we are talking about building your first 3,000 points. This video is going to be part one of a trilogy, and it's going to focus on everything related to getting your first 3,000 points, from painting them all the way to making the list. If you'd like more detailed information on anything that we're talking about today, let me know in the comments. If there is interest in it, I will make further breakdown videos to cover what the people want. I will be using my own journey as an example for this video, with lots of footage of tiny tanks. I've identified 4 primary steps to complete your first 3,000 points and get them ready for the table. You can complete these steps in, they're not strictly in order. You can complete them as you see fit. Sometimes you're going to jump around from one step to the next and then go back, and you'll see what I mean. First, we need to choose a faction. Then, you're going to have to choose your paint scheme, and you can do that after building, but I'm putting building and painting as step 3. And your 4th step is to make a list. You could also make your list before you begin painting anything or buying anything for that matter, but I'm putting it at the end for the purpose of this breakdown. There's a bonus step, expanding your forces after that, and we'll talk about that at the end. So, first, choosing the faction. This is important in any kind of game like this that you're going to do, but it's different with Legions Imperialis. There's only 2 factions to choose from, with the then allied Knights and Titans that you can have. You can also ally in that other faction, and those 2 choices are the Space Marines or the Solar Auxiliaries. And the starter box comes with enough that you can really just make the entire starter box. That can be your start, and if you want to go primarily Space Marines, you can ally in that entire Solar Auxiliary detachment. Less true about the Solar Auxiliary, because the Space Marines, they are only capable of taking one of the battle tanks. They have 2 different detachments of battle tanks, and you're only going to be able to take one. You'll need to buy something else in order to use all of that. And if you do that, you're going to start to not be able to use all of the Warhounds, but you don't have to have just one list. You know, sometimes you're going to use your Warhounds or Titan support. Sometimes maybe we use the Space Marines or the Solar Auxiliary if you go the other way. So, when we choose the faction, in a game like Legions Imperialis with only 2 factions to choose from, you do have the option to say that you want to do both. And you can keep both of them, you can make one force or the other, but you're going to start with one faction that you're focusing on. If you try to make both factions at the same time, it's going to take you more time to be able to get to a 3,000 point list, or 2,000 point list if you're going for that, because you can't just have half and half for a legal game. If you're playing with your friends, absolutely do whatever you want. My primary opponent that I play, he just plays whatever. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose our paint scheme. As I said before, this doesn't have to be the second thing you do. You don't have to choose this right after choosing your faction, but you might be doing that anyway if you've gone with the Space Marine Legions, as most people in this game are probably playing Space Marine Legions to play one of those 18 legions that were active during the Horus Heresy. You don't have to. You can paint them however you want. If you want to paint up a faction, a Space Marine chapter from 40k, you can do that. You can do that, or you can make your own. But I feel like a lot of people in this kind of game, it's got, even though it's not historic because none of this happened, it's got that historic feel to it where people want to play the actual legions that were involved, as opposed to making up their own story. It's weird that way, though. It's not historic at all. There is no historic accuracy to it. But we do know everything that happened during the Horus Heresy because it's been written as though it was in the past. For the Solar Auxiliary, there are already those cohorts that you can choose to recreate, or you can create your own. I feel there's more tactical, more flexibility in choosing your paint scheme with that, because there is less known about them, but there's also much more than 18 of them. There are significantly more, and most of them are probably not written about at all. So you can pick what you want. About 25% of the Imperial Army was Solar Auxiliary. So make what you want. You can even choose to, again, recreate some of those paint schemes that are used in the 40K setting. So you could do the Vestroian Firstborn, or Acadians, or the Catechins are going to be a little bit trickier to do because part of their setting is to have the arms out. But you can do however you want. Death Course of Krieg would actually be really fun to do. You'd probably want to get some green stuff and make the coats, the trench coats that they're known for. Armageddon Steel Legion also have trench coats. Different kind of trench coat. I don't know how to tell the difference, but you can see it when you look at the two models. You can tell the difference right away. I think I feel like I've seen enough pictures that I'd be able to tell the difference. When choosing a paint scheme, you want to pick something that you're gonna want to pick something that you can do. You're not just saying, "All right, I want to do Alpha Legion." Come up with how you want to paint Alpha Legion, what colors you want to use, what's gonna look well. It's important that you like what you have on the table. If you paint everything and it looks like garbage in your own perspective and you don't like it, then you're not going to like putting it on the table that much. I feel like you should be happy with what you're painting. So if you know that you have a very hard time painting white, maybe you want to stay away from World Eaters or White Scars. Or you could just practice it until you get something that you like. The contrast paints, I feel, I've seen people make some armies that are white using the contrast paints, and it looks great. So, you add a splash of red or a splash of blue, and now they look fantastic. I myself went for something based off of a video game. I won't say which. I'll let you guys guess in the comments below. But that's what I made for my Solar Auxiliary. All I had to do was, I tried a couple of different ways at first for the infantry before I started to really like a specific system of painting it. So, and you should develop a system too. You don't want to just look at each individual model and start painting them. Go through batches. I do mine on the sprue, and I go through all of the black parts, it's Black Templar contrast, so it's really less, it's not pure black, it's a greenish black, but I put that on all the spots that I intend to, the legs, the arms, and usually the chest. Sometimes I leave the chest for my other color, the blue. But then I touch that all up. I come back, I touch up what I need to with the white so that I can put the Talos Art blue on. I put that on the shoulders, the helmet, and the boots. I put whatever the actual black contrast is onto the guns, and then I come back. I put a little the thing they got coming over their shoulder. I put some metallic on that. Come back and hit it with some Agrax Earthshade, and they're done. The last thing you have to do is a little bit of base that's still on them because their feet aren't on the ground. Their feet are wedged in between a lump of the base, what's going to be part of the base. And I do the same thing for the tanks. You put the largest color on first. That's going to cover everything. I touch up a little bit with the white so that I can put Talos Art blue where I want to put those squadron markings at. And I also put some of the cables and things like that I want to be red. Just give a little bit of distinction from it. 3 colors is a good number to get yourself to have your tanks and even your infantry just break up the material that's on them. Not everything that they're wearing is plate. Not everything that they're wearing is metal. Not everything that they're wearing is that same cloth. Some metals are different, so you want to break those things up. With Space Marines, you could probably get away with slightly less. The armor is all the armor. You may not want to do the trim but you should put a secondary color on there still, just to break things up, to make them not look like one lump. And then with contrast, it's going to do a lot of the work for you, where it's going to be darker in those recesses, and it's going to be brighter at the highlights, at the tips where the sunlight is hitting it more. And just finally, a little dry brush maybe, if you can. And where you're really going to get more detail is with the squad leaders, the people that are wearing cloaks, the flags, the banners, things like that. When it comes to building and painting your army, finding time to build and paint your army, you are going to have to just accept the fact that you're not going to always be able to sit down and do everything all at once. This infantry was not painted all at one time. I did not get the blue on their helmets and their shoulders and their boots at the same time as the guy to the left and right of them. 5-10 minutes at a time here and there, and I was able to work through the sprue systematically. And then when the time came up and I had to leave or go to work or go to bed or go eat dinner, that is when I had to put the brush down, clean everything up, and come back to it the next time to get the guy next to them. I didn't even probably get everything, you know. I probably had to come back and hit the left side of the helmet sometimes. You know, I missed the right boot. I missed a bit here and there, and you just need to, if it's not finished, if you're not happy with it, then you got to touch it up a little bit. And a lot of it was just touching up here and there, fixing where it was not finished yet before going on to the next spot. And one last thing with jumping back to that picking your color scheme part, one last thing for that was the Titans. These are a lot bigger. They're a lot more, you know, they're the centerpieces of these models. They're not as big as, say, a Knight in 40K scale, in 28mm scale. But they do have a lot of detail to them that you can do. And I went with these Fire Wasps because I knew I have a yellow that I'm pretty happy with. It gets some compliments when I go to the store. And I've done Hazard Stripes before in the past, and I really like the way it all looks. So I really wanted to, it's still a test, it's still a challenge, but I knew that I'd be happy putting them on the table. I knew that they'd look really good. And then the way they got that, Fire Wasp specifically have been depicted in artwork with a blue panel, and people there's any number of different reasons for why they have a blue panel. A badge of honor of some sort. I really like that it ties them in with my army by putting that there. And everything here, you know, your aircraft don't have to be the same color as your army. Your tanks don't have to be the same color. But everything having that same color palette, that same stuff going on, it really makes things blend in well. They look good together. It looks like they all belong together. And when I eventually put some Space Marines together and I've got Blood Angels running around next to these guys, that'll look really cool. You know, they'll tie in with the panels of my Titans. And when I've got some Imperial Fists, they'll tie in with the panels of my Titans. And when I've got some White Scars, you know, they'll have a little bit of red, so they'll still tie in with the panels of my Titans. My Legion forces, not so much. Not so much, but it'll all be fine because did I say Legions? Trader forces. My trader forces aren't going to tie in as well with their Titans, but I'll have a bunch of different trader legions in my force, so it'll all be fine. So that comes to the last step, coming up with your list. When you are putting together your list, there is two ways to do this, and they tie in with what you're buying, right? So one way to do it is to, before you start buying anything, before you start painting anything, you make your list and you buy exactly what you need. I need 3,000 points. This is it. I'm buying this. This is 3,000 points. This is 3,025 points. I need to either get rid of these guys, but they're very useful, or I need to get rid of like 6 of these. So it's a tough choice. But that wasn't the point. That was the entire box that I built. Everything was put together, so it's good. This is technically also illegal because I would take off one of those and one of those. But when you can either put that list together and then use that as your shopping list and buy your 3,000 points. Or what I like to do is I like to start off a little bit smaller. I started off with this right here, my starter box and 1 additional infantry box, and then a second additional infantry box, which is spread out across the table. But I started with those, and they came with some tanks. The Leman Russ is there, and the Malcador's over here. And then all that we could buy in the beginning, those early days of the game, were our Super Heavies. And then for Space Marines, they could have gotten the Kratos, the counterpart to the Super Heavies, and Rhinos. So they had a little bit more than they get in the Thunderhawk, of course. I had to wait a very long time to get my bombers because they were constantly sold out. You could only get them online, but eventually I did get them. And then when the Malcadors came out, the Malcador variants came out, I bought a pack of that. And I started working on my list from there. I like to build my list with what can I play, what can I get right now that I'll be able to start playing with. And that's why a Reaver joined the forces, because it filled out the points quite nicely. And what you do when you're doing it that way is maybe you start with 1,000 points. What's 1,000 points? What gets me to 1,500 points? What gets me to 2,000 points so I can play that next larger game, so I can play the next size up? Quick interjection. While I was at work today, I actually filmed the rest of the video before going to work, and then while I was at work, it dawned on me, I forgot to mention one thing I wanted to talk about for this, for making your first list. So you're going to be buying, however you do it, you're gonna buy some models. And what's different with Legions Imperialis, one thing that's going to be different with it is you're not buying a squad of guardsmen and then that's all it ever is a squad of guardsmen. You're not buying some Chaos Terminators and you play them as Chaos Terminators, and maybe you have a 10-man Terminator squad, maybe you have a 5-man Terminator squad. That's always going to be what it is, right? With these guys, you have 10-man. You have 4 auxiliaries here, right? And then maybe you add 4 more as an upgrade. Cool. Same thing as the Terminators, right? But the other thing that matters is this right here. All of this is one detachment, is one formation with multiple detachments in it, right? And if I wanted to, this could be a separate detachment in this formation, and this could be a separate detachment in this formation, and we could put these in this formation, and we could put those in this formation, and I could put both of them in this formation or one of them, and putting them in how you have your formations set up in Legion Imperialis is going to change a little bit. One, it changes your deployment. More formations to deploy is going to mean you can see what your opponent is, where is your opponent deploying the thing that kills your tanks, or the things that kill your infantry. How much of your opponent's forces are being focused onto the left objective, or the right objective, or the center objective, or plural, because there's sometimes more than 3. How much you have in a formation,
and how many formations you have is going to let you play around with that a little bit. But the other thing it does is your breakpoints. So I have here I have one sub-cohort that is maxed out. Remove, I mentioned it elsewhere in the video, but remove these for the purposes of, they're just there because I had 6 of them. This sub-cohort is very small. This sub-cohort right here, very small. It's the smallest it can be. This Pioneer Force is not as large as this Pioneer Force. And what you can do is you don't, that small sub-cohort, it's only there to be an additional formation. You can take that out. You could save yourself some points by doing that. But you could also, mostly by taking out the commander, the HQ, required HQ choice of that. But you could also, by putting those auxiliaries with other detachments, you save a few points there doing that too. Or you could put a lot of these tanks, I could put into those other formations. It increases the break point. What you should be doing is, when you play your games, try it out in different ways. This exact same, every single model that is on this table, minus those extra commanders, you can play this at the same point cost by moving things around a little bit, putting them into different formations, splitting your detachments a little bit. That'll change how many points you actually spend. But you can do a lot of tweaks to what you have that you wouldn't be doing with a box of guardsmen or 12 boxes of guardsmen. So practice that. Not practice. Toy around with that. Play around with it. See how you like doing things like that. See what works best for you. This is probably not going to be the right way to do that. Maybe split up those Ogren. I could do that. It's only going to change the breakpoint. And how much... Yeah, it's only going to change the breakpoint. Where I put those auxiliaries with flamers, only going to change the breakpoint. So mess around with those things. Try that out in your list. That's something you should be doing early on. And back to the rest of the video. This leads us to the bonus step, what to do after this. So my next step is I want to build a list that has a little bit of everything. And I already have a little bit of everything, but I want a little bit more everything. So some more tanks. I've got some more frontline tanks, some more Lehman Russes, the workhorses there. I've got a lot of these. Support guys over here. So that's that right there is a Pioneer Force. And over here, I have another Pioneer Force. So I've got two units that are going up and getting into the enemy's face. And then I've got a large sub-cohort here to fill out my ranks. And I'm going to take out some of the less necessary things in this list. I'll work on getting the Reaver out of this. So I got 600 points to play around with. That's not right. That's not 600 points. I've got a Reaver's worth of points to play around with here, and I'm going to add in some more flyers so I can have just attack the enemy from all points. Massive infantry, massive tanks, and massive aircraft. And that means that the Warhound will also have to be taken out of the list. But that's how you expand your forces from there. Just, with what I have right here, what's a purchase or two, or a unit, or I've already got them purchased. They're already sitting in the box over here, ready to be painted. What's a thing that I can add? What can I paint in here that I can immediately add into that list by removing something? So it's going to be the aircraft there, the Lightning Fighters, and then another option I have is I could do the 4 Super Heavies there, the Stormhammers and the Baneblades, and I could use those to replace the Titans. And then from there, I'm going to work on all of these guys. I'm going to get all of those done, expanding my forces piece by piece, adding in transports, adding in more bombers, adding in more tanks, more artillery, and then I'm going to start working on adding in more Titans, getting my Titan forces up, getting my Knights, adding in Space Marines, starting with a detachment at a time, anything that can be played with this 3,000 points that I can now pick and choose, pull things out, add things in. That is how I'm going to be expanding my forces. That's how you, as a player, can also expand your forces. So, what do you think? How do you like this video? The next part in this trilogy is going to be on the terrain. How much terrain you're going to need, how much of a table a box will cover, and how they kind of come together, and you can do different things with them. Might not be as long of a video as this one is, but I'm going to put this together, and I will see you guys next time. Once again, this has been Eagle Spire Gaming. Thanks for flying by.